Alright folks, welcome to the show where we take bags apart, see what's inside. We're going to look at the seams, the fabric, the closing stitches, what kind of thread they use. We're going to do a full in-depth dive into these pro bags. Starting with the BG Viking from bgcornhole.com. This was the Veterans Day release. It's got the flag colorway. And I wanted to always get a set of BGs to see how they played, and it seemed like the right time to do it. They always seemed out of stock. I was looking; they're always out of stock. Could never get them. Kind of ticked me off. And these were finally like a one-time release. So I better grab them, even though they're kind of expensive. Might as well go for it. We will be taking a close-up look at the carpet side and the slide side. They got these weird names. Everybody just calls this fabric carpet, but carpet's in my bedroom. It's not on my bags. I won't get into what it's actually made out of because that would kind of give it away, and I don't want to give away what these fabrics are. Needless to say, I do have this fabric, and I do have this fabric. I don't have the fill. The fill is pretty special stuff. When we get to that, you'll see. Let's get our first sort of close-up look at this bag and see what we're dealing with here. The slide fabric is a regular plain weave, pretty tight stitched, pretty tightly woven, I should say. I know the name, I'm not going to say the name, but it's 100% polyester, and that's why they're able to get these colors on there, because they're sublimated. These are not screen printed, they're not vinyl heat press-ons. This is a sublimation process. What happens is the sublimation ink goes on sublimation paper. Paper goes on the fabric. Both go into a heat press where it's heated up to like 400 degrees for about a minute. And the ink turns into vapor and is chemically bonded to the polyester molecularly. That's a hard word. Molecularly. But you can get really good detail using this process. Great colors. And the colors do look pretty darn good. They seem a little washed, like it's not the sharpest lines I've ever seen on a sublimation. Like here, I think that could look better, but that's just me. But all in all, it's good print. Like, see the ACL Pro logo? It just seems washed out. Like, it's not very sharp around the edges here. And we're gonna get a super close-up look with the other lens. But for now, this is just a semi-close-up look. Let's get this closing stitch in there. It's a darn good one. It's not done by hand. This is done by an automated tacking machine, or pattern machine, whatever you want to call it. They use gray thread. And again, we're going to take super close-up looks at every stitch and all the fabrics. Now this is... here's your first giveaway. It's made in USA, and it's not polyester. You cannot sublimate on this fabric. It's pretty durable stuff based on the double rub data, and you can kind of see here, but it's also the same plain. It's about the same size weave. This is just a little bit bigger on the slow side. And when we take the super close-up look, you'll be able to see it. But for now, if you can maybe see it, like every other one is kind of shiny. Dull, shiny, dull, shiny, dull, shiny. Pretty cool. All I did to these was put them in the dryer, and I play with them. So they're not like super broken, but they're soft enough to really get some good play. It's nice and even. Corners are good. They're a little pointier than what I do, but they're fairly well rounded. Now the part I know you've all been waiting for. I did it off camera, but the bag is open. We're gonna dump it out, take a close look at the fill. But upon like preliminary inspection, let me just get the camera focused. Give you a quick peek, but let's get this stuff dumped out here. Bear with me as I manually focus. We're going to weigh it. We do all sorts of stuff to it. That sounded wrong. Okay, let's get focused up. And I will flip it right now, just so we can get all the beads out. Do it nice and slowly, so we don't spill any. I want to get the exact weight of the beads, all of them. There we go. One last corner. Get the beads out. Okay, I think we got them all. We're going to set this aside for now and come back to it pretty soon. Alright, one bead right there. Let's get in there. Alright, when I said we were going to get in there, I meant it. We are in there. Look at these guys. Let me try and find this. Here we go. There's my little pointer. Odd shapes, irregular shapes. That's the word I was looking for. Irregular. You can see where they are cut. I imagine this is a different density, this brighter white one. White. But I bet that like all these other colors, like the black one, and I'm looking for a blue one here. There's a blue one. Blue one. I would bet that they are all the same density and weight. And they just do a mix. There's that weird one. We got some like neon green, is it dark green? I feel like a surgeon. Maybe that's what we should call this series. Bag surgery. Get in there, see what's right, see what's wrong. But there's really nothing wrong with these bags. They're pretty good. They are on the small side in general. But we're going to talk about that when we get to the template and sewing. And here it is. This is their stitch line. They're given what looks to be quarter inch or less right here. With this being a top-end premium bag, they got the laser cut edges, very nice. I'm not sure what happened here with the sublimation. I bet there was just some ink on either their press pad or the heat part. Happens sometimes. But you notice they use two different color threads. And both these fabrics have a backing. Let me get up a little closer. And take a closer look. We'll get in even closer in a second. But for now, see the backing. And an interesting thing about their stitch here, which I'll go over when we get super close up, is it's doubled over. It's a double stitch, but it's not next to each other. They double stitched everything, actually. This is the back side of the slow material, aka carpet, and a gray thread, silver. You can see the burned edges from the laser cutter. They use a laser to cut their fabric, which is really cool. A lot of the top-end manufacturers are doing that and saves them a ton of time. I do it by hand, but I do it with an industrial cutter. It takes me about 30 to 45 minutes to cut a 60-yard roll of fabric into, I don't know, 1,500 usable squares. But this is neat because when they do it by laser, they can program the computer to automatically do that rounded corner. I gotta just snip it by hand. But this ensures the same size every time, because what they do is they put it into a automated sewing machine. The clamp comes down, and then it goes. And what I suspect they're doing is, what I suspect they're doing is they're hitting the run program twice. So it goes around once, resets, goes around again, and that's how they get their double stitch. And you can see it was off a little bit here. We're going to get super close up and look at that. That's what I suspect they do. And the advantage of having the laser cutter for that is that what they do is they sublimate it first and then laser cut it. And you can see that right here. They'll sublimate large pieces of fabric, maybe roll to roll. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe they do. They'll do it. It'd be awesome if they did go roll to roll, meaning they got a big wide printer, prints a big wide sublimation sheet, and that's all pressed in a giant machine that does the whole roll at once. Then I suspect it feeds it into the laser cutter, because there's no doubt that this is sublimated and then cut. And it is off a little bit because down here you can see the edge of the sublimation versus the edge of the fabric, and on the top it's cut off. I'm going to do my best to keep this like in focus, but it is tough when you're at this kind of magnification. But this is either the start point or the stop point, but it's hard to tell. I think this is where they start because you can see the fabric tails, or not fabric, thread tails are a little bit longer. Oop, lost it. Tails are a little longer. Either they're bobbin. I don't know which they're putting on top or bottom. I think this fabric right here, this is the slide side on top, the sublimated side. I think that is on top when they do their sewing. And I say that because 9 times out of 10, when you see these little gray, where's my pointer? Where's my pointer? There we go. When you see that, it means your tension's not set correctly, and it's usually too tight on top. So they would need to loosen their tension just a little bit to get a perfect stitch. This is good enough to get by, but it's not perfect. It's not 100%, so I'd have to give them a demerit there. Because this gray thread is being pulled up through the bottom. That right there. And we'll go over here to the other side where it looks like it stops. The run stitch stops. So it's going up and around, back over again, and not on top of itself, thankfully, but it's not exactly doing a back tack here. So you got an open-ended, no back tack. So it's coming around, and then I guess it wants to do a back tack, but it's not programmed right on top of each other, and it just goes on top. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier about their double stitching. It's not necessarily double stitch how, say, I double stitch a bag. My double stitch gives about 1/8 of an inch gap. So my double stitch would run about here. Single straight stitch and a single straight stitch about here. They're doing it right on top of each other. And what I was saying was, earlier, they'll do the run program twice in that automated machine. So it goes once, goes around, then they reset it, just hit the foot pedals once or twice, and it does the whole program again. That's why you can see right here, there's clearly 2 stitch marks with 2 thread lines. And right about here, you can see where it was off just a little bit. This is on the left side of the bag. Get a closer look at these corners. Now these bags have been used a little bit, so it's hard to tell what, like, if I lay the fabric perfectly flat, you can see the line is just a little bit curved. This is the bottom. All these edges are slightly curved. but the corner itself looks to be like a 1 1/4, maybe 1.5 inch rounded corner. Now that equates to like 1/2 inch or less from the actual corner here. Do I got anything around me? No, I don't. I'm just gonna try to measure that. We can kind of eyeball it against these lines. These are quarter inch lines. Kind of lined up there, and I'm kind of lined up there. So that's a little more than 1/4, probably 3/8 NBD. No big deal. What we're looking at here is something you can kind of see. This being the corner of the opening, and this being where the closing stitch starts and stops. They have it really, really close. I would recommend just one more stitch this way, one more stitch here, and on the other side too, just to help super seal that closing seam. Because if you look at the other side here, see those little holes? That's from the closing stitch. If you look here, it went past it, past the mark just a little bit by a couple stitches. 1, 2. No big deal again, but better safe than sorry to have a full closure. And again, this closing stitch is done by an automated machine, maybe even the same one. Here we have a close-up shot. It's a close-up shot of the lasered edges. See, it's kind of melted. That is good. That helps the fabric from fraying. A little something I noticed taking a closer look at this inside edge is this little pink rectangle. It's there. Right now we're looking at the top opening of the bag. This would be the right side of the bag. There's another pink thing. On the bottom there's another pink thing. And on the fourth side, wouldn't you know it, there's another pink thing. Probably has something to do with alignment in their templates. Just little fun facts. This is the sublimation close-up that I promised you. Right now we're looking at the top of the eagle head. And I want to show you the ACL Pro stamp. Why I think that could be better. It's just such a tight line right here. Not enough outline. Maybe it's the printer. Maybe it's how they sublimate. Time and temp. Pressure. Maybe. Or the paper they use. I couldn't say for sure. But it does lead me to believe they mass produce via maybe a roll to roll. Hey guys, my name's Eagle. Taking a look at the slow side, you can see how I was saying, remember every other square is kind of shiny? That's all manufacturer driven, but pretty cool. This is one of the faster carpet sides, carpet speeds. It's the same stuff I use on my Intimidator bag, which I'm going to put in place right now. In fact, we'll put them side by side. Where are my fingers? Okay. So make sure I get the focus right. That's got to be the third time I've hit my head on this overhead rig I made. But same fabrics, same exact fabric. How do I know? I know. That's how I know. This is the closing stitch. It's gray on both sides. Nope, black and gray. Or is that black? That is hard to tell. But I think it's the same color as this. But no, it's not. It definitely can't be. That's lighter. It looks like the same fabric. So it's probably done on a different machine. Just a small field pattern machine. Specialized clamp. There's a couple back tacks, just one or two. And what this does, they're going, it starts maybe here, we'll say, back tack all the way across, back tack. Then they are restarting the program in place and doing it again for a double stitch. Alright, here you can see the double stitching of the closing stitch. Pretty clear to see that there are two runs of thread, two stitches. Tighter, it's a little bit shorter stitch length than the bag itself, the main stitch. And overall, while we're here, I'm going to take this under here. This is a shorter stitch as well. Compared to what I do about a 2.5, 3 millimeter, probably 3 millimeter. This looks like a 2.5. It's pretty tight. Now, how does the overall stitch seem compared to the whole bag? When I put it on top, about like that. That's about how much you lose when you flip it inside out. Just look at it. Just look at it. And I'm going to put my template on top and see what to do. Oh, my template is not much larger, but it is larger. And this is a smaller bag. When I held the Intimidator next to this bag, my bag was clearly bigger. BG has got to be one of the smallest bags in the field. I would say they have the same corner roundness, but since they're using a smaller template in general, and this is what's curious. Maybe the fabric is just stretched out, but this bottom line here juts out. Reynolds does that too, and I wouldn't put them against them to just have stolen Reynolds' template. Reynolds is small as well. Let's see how it stacks up against this Reynolds Freedom bag. Alright, this is a little bigger. To touch on the fill one more time, just take a listen to this. A little ASMR action. Compared, see that crunchy sound? That's all those jagged edges and oblong, irregular shapes. That's why it's bouncy. Now compare that to the sound of mine. Which has discs. Alright, let's see what these beads weigh. Beads being pellets, the plastic resin fill. I'm gonna carefully, very carefully get these in there. These being such a bouncy type of pellet, like they are hard to handle. There's a little bit of static clean going on in my funnel here, which is annoying. Alright, they're in the funnel. Come on, get in there. Alright, what do we got? 15.5 ounces of fill, and when we pair this with our empty bag, we should be at 1 pound, or whatever they want it to be. 1 pound, 0.2 ounces. Yeah. 15.5 ounces of fill. Cool. Let's see what a regular bag weighs. I had it tailored with the cup, so get it zeroed out. One bag, 1 pound, 0 ounces. 1 pound, 0.2 ounces. 1 pound, 0.2 ounces. Let's do that first one again. 1 pound. And we already know that this, coupled with this, is going to be 1 pound, 0.2 ounces. Very, very close stuff. Very good. I imagine they're doing this by hand because this fill is so bouncy and it just goes everywhere. It'd be really hard to use a bag filler unless it's like an enclosed type of thing. So I think they're doing it by hand, which takes some time. I hope they're not, because the amount of bags they put out, boy, I hope they're cranking these things with a machine. Now this bag's been used, slightly broken in, so it's not fair to say like how hard it would be to flip, but with this size hole, pretty easy to flip. The way I flip, even with it already being slightly broken in, like that's not bad at all. That's pretty easy. That's not too bad. I'm just playing with the fabric at this point. We can fill it up. Let me get focused real quick. Get the fill back in there, put it all back together. Yeah, if they're doing this by hand, like that does not exactly go through quickly. Bag is full. I'll close it up. Alright, well I got my closing stitch on there. This is the B3 closing stitch. It's not the BG closing stitch. It's a single stitch. This is just so I can play with it again. I only bought these bags to do this type of take apart, tear down thing. I'm not going to be doing an ACL thing, because in the ACL, if you take a bag apart, put it back together, like if you mess with the stitch, the fill, you cannot use it in a tournament. There you can see the difference in stitches. Mine is just a couple inches shorter. But I didn't run the whole thing. I just went till I felt like it was a good place to stop. Again, that's mine on the right and theirs on the left. All in all, pretty good bag. Like really well made. I don't like how they did that double stitching on top of each other. I don't like that. I'd rather see evenly spaced stitching. Closing stitch is really good. It was a pain in the butt to take apart, believe me. Fabrics are great. I know where they come from, what they are. I'm going to order some of this fabric soon enough, but I got plenty of this for these bags. Yeah, good bag. Not surprised they're in the pros for the ability to bounce, flop, and roll. And that's because of the size, the fill, and slightly shape. A lot of that has to do with the fabric and the board playing surface. You can't do that floppy stuff on slick boards like I got. But on a UV printed board, yeah, you can probably get away with it. Alright, that does it. Thanks for watching.